The following program is a Creative Magic Network production. You're listening to What's Your Excuse with Max Ivey, known around the world as the Blind Blogger. People often say, if Max can do it, then why can't I? Here's Max Ivey.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Maxwell Ivey, also known around the world as the Blind Blogger, and I want to welcome you to another episode of What's Your Excuse, where we're going to get into the way people become the person they end up being. And I'm excited today for a few reasons. First, the audio version of Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, a blind man's inspirational guide to success, has been approved by Audible and will soon be added to the Creative Magic store over at frederickby.com. Secondly, I have completed the writing part of the book on my Amtrak experience, starting from when I applied for it, what I was feeling and thinking at the time, all the way up until after I got home, and how I feel like the whole experience has impacted me and my professional and personal life. But mainly, I'm really happy because we're finally going to get to talk to Chuck Rivers. And Charles Rivers, also called Chuck, he is the host of Inner Success Radio, and him and his partner, Dimitri Billionaire Brown, also have a video version of their show over on YouTube, or at least they had a few months ago because I was a guest there. And Chuck is a really nice guy who, like me and Fred, enjoys putting the spotlight on people who have a good story to tell. But today I want to hear something about his life and how he started Inner Success. And so with no further BS, let's just get to it. Hello, Chuck. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Max. Thank you so much for having me on the show, man. I'm really, really honored to come on and share.
Well, I am very appreciative of your coming on the show. I know that we've had a little bumpy go trying to get us all here at the same time, but then that's the fun of technology, as some people call it. So why don't you start by telling people a little bit more about yourself and your website and what you feel your mission is here on Earth?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest of five. Originally grew up in Buffalo, New York. And I moved down to Maryland in 2006. Between the time I was born and between 2006, I was the person who was still trying to figure things out in life. I at the time hadn't graduated college. I was dabbing in different type of business ventures, and through it all, I was just trying to figure out, who and what I wanted to do with my life. One of the things that I had struggled with growing up was stuttering. I actually had to go see a speech therapist when I was in school, and that didn't work. So it was one of those things where I naturally had to evolve from. And for some reason, I was led to radio. You would think, well, a guy who stutters, why is he doing radio? But I looked at it as a way of me overcoming my impediment. I looked at it as a way of me me eliminating all types of excuses for some of the things that when people strive towards something that, okay, well, if a guy who stuttered, who went to see a speech therapist, didn't help at all, can start a radio program, then anybody could. So it was a mixture of me wanting to, improve in my speaking or in the speaking arena, but secondly also be a catalyst to help other people eliminate the excuses that we sometimes make when we want to venture into doing our own things.
And then tell people a little bit about the radio show and mention the website.
Yeah, so the name of the podcast is Inner Success Radio. We originally were on the air back in 2013. It was on the air for about a year. Then we took it off the air, and then we actually just got it back up on the air. It'll be a year it'll actually be a year in this upcoming April. We're about 52, 53 episodes in. And Max, I know me and Demetrius had the pleasure of having you on our TV program on, as you mentioned at the beginning, on a YouTube series. It's called Inner Success TV. We haven't taken down those interviews, so you guys can still go ahead over to YouTube and check those interviews out. Inner Success TV, and the whole concept of the TV program and the podcast is revolved around wealth, health, and inspiration. We bring on guests and we talk about, those three things, wealth, health, and inspiration. And we tie it into equipping people and giving people the tools necessary to take their lives to the next level.
All righty. Well, I did enjoy doing the TV interview. It was, for people, if you haven't watched it, you ought to go over there and watch it, because I think it's not only a great interview, but between us, we proved that you can find any example in life and turn it into a lesson for your good or for the benefit of others around you. Because I don't think any of us planned on us doing our little bit of karaoke there, but it turned into a good message, I thought, and the people that have viewed that video have said they thought it was cool the way we went with something instead of trying to script something or trying to set something up that would be polished and prepared. So I'm looking forward to y'all doing a lot of great things with both shows. Now, you mentioned that you did stutter, and so you started in radio. What was your first radio show that you did, and what kind of show was it?
So my first radio, actually even before the radio program, I joined Toastmasters. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Toastmasters or if your listeners are familiar with Toastmasters, but that was my first. That was the first thing I decided to join to help me overcome my speech impediment. I was with Toastmasters for about a couple of years, and it helped a lot tremendously, especially getting up in front of a group of people and speaking. And so it was shortly after that is when I decided to start up my radio program. So initially it was just me. I would say for the first couple of episodes, I didn't have any guests on. I didn't have a co-host. It was just me on there talking. And then I decided to reach out and start to interview guests and interview different people, different experts. And it was at that moment when I realized I had to put fear to the side, because no longer was it was only about me. Not only was it about the guests, but it was about the people who were listening in. And once I understood that conceptually, once I understood that down on a conceptual level, it was easier for me to talk to somebody and not stutter over every 5 words that I'm saying.
Well, so don't you find it, at least I think this has been my experience at least, don't you find it ironic that it seems like many of us can do stuff for other people, or when we feel an obligation to other people, that we can't do for ourselves out of our own desire to accomplish something?
Yeah, that's funny, and I'm glad you brought that up, Max, because it's just one of those things of life is where we go above and beyond for somebody else, and we'll go to that next level for somebody else. But then when it comes down to us, we have all these excuses in place, right? We set these limitations for ourselves. But then if other people are involved, it's like, okay, well, we dig down deep and we go to that next level, which is kind of ironic to me. I'm not sure why we do that as humans.
I'm not sure either, but I know that if a friend of mine, or even somebody that I only slightly know, sends me an email saying that they could really use a blog post or an interview appearance in the next few days, I may do that for them, even if I'm behind on writing posts for my own blog. And so I know that that's the case in my life. So I thought I'd ask you if you also experienced that and noticed that in a lot of the people that you come in contact with through your show or through your daily life.
Yeah, I think, and it's like I think this is what you're saying, Max, but I think it's like we overcommit, right? We could be behind on deadlines with our own work, but then somebody else reaches out to us and says, hey, can you do a guest post or can you come on our radio program for us? But we're behind on our own work, but we still say yes. And I don't know if that's like a fear of saying no to the person or letting somebody down. But I think at the end of the day, we have to prioritize and make sure that, we're not putting ourselves back in a corner. We're not digging ourselves into a hole because, while that other person is getting their content done and created, our content is suffering because we're not working on it.
Right. And I think a lot of that just goes back to this this idea that if we're so happy to have anybody want us to contribute that it becomes more special than doing our own work. I can remember the days when I first started helping people sell amusement equipment, and I would get just as happy, if not more so, from somebody deciding they wanted to list their equipment with me than I would if I had actually sold the ride or game for them. So I was just happy to have the work. Yeah. So I do think that is a common thing that a lot of people just don't believe that they deserve to be successful themselves, or don't, if they do feel just so lacking in their own lives that when they get that least little invite from somebody else, it's a big deal and it becomes something they have to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, before I continue this, I need to mention that this is on the Creative Magic Network at frederickby.com, FREDERIC, B as in boy, YE.com. You can head over there to the Creative Magic store and check out my books as well as books and other products from Frederick and past guests. A lot of good stuff over there on the website. And if you want to be a guest, there's a link. If you have a message of positivity, if it's the kind of person who enjoys uplifting others and motivating them, there's also a become a host over there where we can talk you through the process of starting your own show and even help you produce it if that's what you need. So I got that in, which is something I'm having to learn to do now that I'm doing this show by myself. Well, when I first started doing this, Frederick did all the commercials, but now I got to try to remember that and time and some other things. But and that's something both of us have in common. At least you do for your TV version. Is we both have co-hosts. In my case, I didn't feel like I could do the show without having somebody to help me with the technical stuff and be there as somebody to jump in when I either don't have it or lose it or can't figure out where to go next. Did you feel like you needed to have somebody do the show with you, or did that just turn out to be one of those things that when you and Dimitri met, you just clicked and decided you had to do the thing together?
Well, when the show was first put on the air back in 2013, it was just me. I didn't have a co-host, and for the most part, I was still working a full-time job, and my commute one way was an hour and a half. So I would get off work, commute an hour and a half home, and then get home and then run the interview. So you can imagine my Monday through Fridays were extremely busy and tiring. So I don't feel like I needed to have a co-host at that time. Of course, it definitely would have been helpful because I would have been able to delegate a lot of the tasks, especially when it comes to post-production of the show, to the co-host. The reason why I have a co-host now was because, me and Demetrius have been looking for a project to work on together for a while. And he knew I had my podcast, and one of his dreams was to start up a podcast. So we just put two and two together, and we put Inner Success Radio back on the air. So it definitely makes a difference where you delegate the task and you're bringing different perspectives to the podcast. Because I think one way and he thinks another way, and those two minds coming together creates a different type of show than your typical, one-on-one show where you hear just one person interviewing this one person.
Right. And for people who haven't listened to your show, you and Dimitri, y'all are very, very different people.
Yeah.
Your backgrounds are widely different than each other's, and the way you present yourself, the way your voice comes across the air is much different too. So it's a very, you throw in a guest, it becomes a great combination that y'all have over there. Now I tell people that people had been asking me when I was going to do my own show for a long time, and I kept telling them that I didn't feel like I had enough room on my plate to do it unless I found a co-host, and then a co-host appeared. And so, how do you feel about the law of attraction and about your, either prayer or putting it out there in the world that you're in need of certain people or resources and actually having them show up? Where do you come down on that?
It's funny that you mentioned the law of attraction. I've actually been on a Abraham Hicks binge the last couple of weeks, and Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks. For anybody that doesn't know, they're Esther. She's into the law of attraction, and she's into I'm not sure how to explain it, but she channels spirits, and she channels this one spirit named Abraham, who has insight into the law of attraction and how people can tap into it. So I think ultimately, being that the work was already out there, and me putting that request out there saying, hey, I could use a co-host. I can use a guest for the podcast. Not a guest, but I can use another host for the podcast. Then Demetrius showed up. So I think so when it comes to the law of attraction, the way that she talks about it is there's a vortex, and everything that we desire, everything that we want is already within this vortex. And it's all a matter of us just aligning ourselves with those ideals that we want in order to attract it into our life. So Demetrius, or if it wouldn't have been Demetrius, our co-host was already in my vortex. And I just had to put the request out there and align with that desire in order for Demetrius to come into the picture. And I think that can be the case with anything, Max. If we desire to, retire from corporate America, then that means that desire is already within our vortex. We just have to align ourselves. We just have to align our vision with it in order to attract it into our lives.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, because let's see, this is January, fixing to be February. A year ago, I was putting out in the world that I wanted to travel and get out from behind my laptop for a change. And 4 months later, I went a trip to New York City, and just now here I am back home again working on a book about it. So I definitely agree with you that there is that energy out there. It's always been out there. It will always be out there, to borrow a little from Wayne Dyer. And it's just a matter of being willing to put it out there in the universe, or to send it out in your prayers that's what you need.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off that, and I think, it goes back to, I was listening to, actually just today, I was listening to an Esther Hicks thing on YouTube, and one of the people on there were asking a question about how come they attracted this particular situation into their lives when they were thinking something completely different. And the way that she broke it down is that the law of attraction is based off of vibrations, not necessarily our words. So we can throw words out there, but if we're vibrating something entirely differently, then that's what's going to be attracted to us. It's not based off our words; it's based off of our vibrations.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I often tell Fred during our calls, or that I've told other people, is that if you really want something to happen, if you're trying to manifest for anything in your life, you have to get to the point where you've got the courage to say it out loud. So, I have often said that one of these days, me, Fred, and some of my guests are going to do a live workshop or a live retreat somewhere. And it hasn't happened yet. I don't see the writing on the wall that it's going to happen in the next 6 months, but I keep saying it because I believe it's something that needs to be done and something I think I would enjoy being a part of. But you're right. Your thoughts and your words, they have to align in order for this to work. And if you're saying things that aren't really in sync with who you really are and what you really believe in, then they're not going to happen.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I agree. And also if, we sometimes get too caught up in the details of how something is going to come in. We get too caught up in the, what the A to Z logical linear things that, okay, well, how am I going to attract, $5,000, who's, and it does us a disservice when we get caught up in the details, right? We just have to put the request out there. We have to believe that it's going to come in and then just release it. And that's the exact step that she gives. She says, just put it out there. Don't worry about the how. Just believe, just feel, just vibrate at that frequency, and then it'll show up.
Yeah, and I want to pick up on a key point you made there. People get too tied up in the details of the results because a lot of times we put it out there in the world. We pray, we meditate. Some people even fast, thinking this is what we want and this is how we want it. And the universe or God, when they may give it to you, but they may not give it to you exactly the way you wanted it or expected it to show up. So a lot of being successful with this law of attraction is being willing to accept what is manifested, and instead of looking for the cookie cutter or the picture on the front of the puzzle box, to just be accepting of what you do receive as an answer to what you were asking for. Yeah.
Because I even think sometimes, Max, we don't even know what we want, right? We think we want one thing, right? And then we'll get it, and we'll say, well, this is it? I thought there would have been more than this. So I think sometimes the way the universe is set up, it gives us what we need, not necessarily what we want.
Right. And another thing that I like to think about is people often quote that Bible verse about how God won't give you more than you can handle. And they always assume that's a negative. They always assume that means that he won't give you more struggles than you can handle. That also means he won't give you more blessings than you can handle. And unfortunately for a lot of people, they don't realize that thing they're asking for, it comes with a lot of work. It may come to you, but it may need batteries or assembly, and you may have to wait around for God to show you how you're going to put it together and make it run. And I think a lot of times that is part of the problem. People ask for things, like you say, they don't really know what they want, but they ask for it anyway. And then when they get something different, they're like, "Oh man, this ain't what I asked for."
Yeah, I agree.
So what do you got? What do you got going on or coming up in the next few months or so that you might want to mention before I forget to ask you?
So right now we're, so we're always looking to improve the podcast. We're always looking to, go to that next level. So we're toying around with some ideas as far as podcasting is concerned and the formatting and the release schedule. But even more exciting than that is last year, back in September, me and Demetrius put on our first event for the podcast. It was at a restaurant in New Jersey, and we're looking to do the same thing again this year, but on a bigger scale. We were even thinking about bringing in some speakers. Demetrius, he's close friends with Les Brown. So we even thought about bringing Les Brown in to be a speaker at the event that we're planning to put on this year. So it's just everything's just revolved around growing the podcast right now. The podcast is the future of the way people are going to consume information. Smart cars are going to have podcast apps within them. So I think the stats right now, Max, is I think only about 40% of the population know what a podcast is. But that's going to change now when people start buying these smart cars and what's a podcast? They click on the podcast and they see all these shows where people can click on, and just pretty much radio on demand.
Yeah, I agree with you. The growing the podcast, getting yourself positioned as more and more people start to find out what they are. The other thing I think is a big deal for me as an author is it seems like more and more people are consuming their reading material through audio as opposed to Kindle and electronic books. So
yes, that's
another area where me personally, I'm looking to get more into audio. So I agree with you. And if the driverless cars ever get here, then there's really going to be an expanding market for everything audio and video too. So
yeah,
some of us podcasters may have to dust off our hats and learn a new medium.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
Well, I'm excited to hear about y'all hosting a live event in conjunction with your podcast. And if y'all decide you do need some speakers, I am always available. And now that I have traveled some this year, I realize that traveling isn't as big a deal as I thought it was before.
Yeah.
Well, when you're blind and you live in a place like Houston, Texas, that doesn't have the greatest of transportation options, you kind of get it in your head that getting to places is harder than it is. But then you get out there and you realize, well, getting to that first jumping off point is hard as heck. But once you get there, you can go anywhere. So
yeah,
I hope you will keep me and Frederick informed on the progress of your event so we can help y'all promote that because I do like to support people who are nice enough to have me on their shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely will, Max. And, I appreciate you and Fred, bringing me on, to talk with your audience. When we brought you on to our show for the Inner Success TV program, it was, we didn't know what to expect, because I think when you, and I say that because one, you were, I think one of our first guests, or you were in that first core group of guests. And it was a new program we were just testing out. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how it was going to turn out. And then secondly, you were our first guest who was blind. So as far as the house rules, it was completely unwatered territory for us. Like we didn't know what to expect, but once
I couldn't tell it. I couldn't tell it at all, man. I thought you guys were just two guys hanging out who could care. I mean, y'all didn't even react when I used visual words to describe things. So I was very impressed with you guys. Y'all did great. I mean, some people I'll hear them pause when they hear me say that I watch TV or something along those lines, and I can actually hear them pause in their brain and think, "What am I supposed to say next?" But we had a great time. I think that you and Dimitri both have that joy and that fun to your business that allows you to just roll with things when stuff happens that's off script, let's say. So I was really pleased with you guys. The website is innersuccessradio.com. Did I get that right?
Yeah, innersuccessradio.com. Yes.
And the YouTube channel is youtube.com/
it's Inner Success TV, or if they just YouTube Inner Success TV, it'll pop up.
Yeah, or if y'all just YouTube Max Ivey on Inner Success TV, you'll find that episode. So there you go. Yeah. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but I do appreciate you coming on the show. And, we're glad to finally get you here. And it was, it's interesting that we have some of the same experiences when it comes to law of attraction and things like that. You were talking about how you did radio for your stutter.
Yeah.
And it got me to thinking a couple of years ago, I joined up with one of those online challenges that everybody's always putting out on their blogs and their podcasts. The woman did what she called a 15-day start to star challenge. And what that was every day you would have to answer a question with a short video. Wow. And I tell people all the time that, my videos got much better, and I got even more comfortable recording them from having to do a video every day like that. Even if I did agree to doing it, You get to day 12 and 13 or something, even if you volunteered, it still gets but for people out there who are struggling, that have a fear, I'm not going to tell them that it's easy to face those fears, but that's where you make the biggest growth. That's where you make your big leaps forward, when you're willing to do things that you're afraid of, or that you feel like maybe you should be afraid of. I know that the first time I sang, it was because I had to, and then people said I sounded okay, so I kept doing it. What is one thing that you do besides the radio that used to scare you?
So actually, me and Demetrius actually just went on a cruise back in November, and they had karaoke there. Right now, there was, I would say the crowd was about 40 people was in the crowd. Now, I already can't sing, right? I sound horrible, but when we got to the karaoke place on the cruise ship, something told me, like, you know what, Chuck, just go ahead and just do it, man. You're here to have a good time. Nobody's, this is karaoke, right? It's not like you're auditioning for for a famous rock band or something. This is just karaoke. You're coming in here to have fun. So I think once you put yourself in that situation and you just reframe it, you change the context of the situation, and you realize that, hey, these people are not here to judge you. They're here having to have a good time. Then it makes the experience a lot more easy. So not only did I do one song by myself, I think I did end up doing 4 karaoke songs. And it was really, I found it horrible, but it was so much fun. And just overcoming that fear within itself at that moment was also exhilarating. Right now, there's a quote, you were mentioning about fear earlier. There's a quote, I think, by Zig Ziglar. He says, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is moving on in spite of it. Because fear is always going to be there. Even some of today's top performers will tell you that they still have fear before they get out on stage.
Yeah, one of the things I like to tell struggling authors or people working on their first book, I like to tell them, some people are going to try to tell you that when you get to your second or third book, that this gets easier, that you no longer have those voices in your head telling you that you aren't good enough or that nobody wants to read your stuff. And I'm here to tell you that's a big fat lie, because every time you send a book off to an agent, a publisher, or an editor, even just send it to Amazon, you're gonna hear those voices, because they never go away.
Yeah.
They never go away. They're always there waiting for you to. They're always waiting for you to see if they can't get you to listen this time.
Yeah. Yeah. The voices will always be there. Just always remember that the voices will always be there.
Yeah, I like one of the lines from Flying Leathernecks when John Wayne was asked by one of the younger pilots if he still got nervous when he went down the runway, and he told him, he said, "Kid, if you ever pull that throttle back and don't get nervous, just go hand in your wings, because you've been here too long."
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Well, I think one of the things about fear, especially when it comes to singing or public speaking or being on radio, is people think that the audience is waiting for them to stumble or to look bad or to embarrass themselves. And one thing that it seems like to me is that most audiences, whether it be Toastmasters or a radio interview, most people want you to do well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, from my dealings, and even just being in Toastmasters alone, and hearing about stories about people that went through Toastmasters, most people, more like you said, Max, more than not, want you to do good. Like there's nobody sitting out conspiring against you, wishing for you to do bad.
Yeah, I that's been my experience, but it's another one of those things that most people seem to go out looking for somebody to heckle them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got visions of the two old guys from either the Major League movies or the Muppet Show.
Yeah, and it's interesting how supportive that people are when they see somebody actually striving towards growth. I mean, you may have your handful of people who are going to pull you down, the proverbial crabs in a bucket syndrome, but for the most part, you're going to have people who are going to be pushing you and encouraging you to grow, especially if they know your story, right, Max? Because you have a story. You know, I have a story. I'm sure Fred has a story. You know, once they hear our stories, they're going to be more inclined to encourage us along that path.
I couldn't agree with you more, and it's one of the things I can't stress enough to people, and that is, people don't book authors or your work. They book your story.
Yeah.
And people don't hire people because of their reputation or their services, at least not online. A lot of it starts with them knowing who you are, and they find out who you are by hearing your story. And the thing that is kind of weird when it comes to online and storytelling is that everybody has a story, and I know lots of people out there have even better stories than mine, but so many people refuse to tell their stories. So mine and yours and Fred's, they all look a whole lot better than they could if everybody out there that had a story would share it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. But then I think at the end of the day, some people fear, like I think we were mentioning earlier, some people fear that they're going to be judged based off their story, or some people are scared to share their story for whatever reason. They're scared to share their story.
Was ingrained in some of that is the people they associate with, and some of it can be to one single bad experience. You know, sometimes especially in your young and your middle years, it only takes one person to really say something mean about something you're trying to do for it to be something you never want to do again. And it's a shame that, you know, a lot of people quit singing, quit writing, quit playing musical instruments in their teens because just the one wrong person said the wrong thing at the perfect moment and turned them off of something they loved from then on.
Yeah.
And, you know, then you see them, they're 40 or 50 years old and they're finally getting back to it, which is a shame that all that time has been lost. And, you know, the fear is built up and we haven't been able to benefit from their story or their music or their art because, you know, a couple of bad words.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And actually, I have a personal story with that, Max. When I was going to school, when I first moved down to Maryland in 2006, I was in the process of writing a book. I was actually probably about 3/4 done. 3/4 done with the book, and I didn't tell anybody. It was just one of them things where I wanted to keep it to myself. And somehow, one way or another, my uncle found out that I was writing a book. So we were all at the table together one night for dinner, and he says, "You're writing a book?" And he starts laughing. Max, he started laughing. So from that night on, I've never picked up my pen to continue the book. And I was faithful. Like I was literally writing I had my little black and white composition notebook, and that thing was almost filled up. And from that one moment, from that little scenario where my uncle was, I not picked up a piece of work. That was probably about 7 or 8 years ago.
It's a great story, and I'm glad we can finish with a personal story that really, really brings this home for people that, you know, when you criticize somebody, you could be robbing the world of some great work.
Yes.
It's something people should think more about but, you know, a lot of times it is just a knee-jerk reaction. It is sad that he laughed at you, and that as a result, you didn't finish the book. Have you written other works since then, or did you give up writing altogether?
Yeah, so I wrote a short ebook, probably about 20 pages. It's called The Lost Art of Communication, and it pretty much helps people improve their communication skills, but it's really unconventional. Like, you will not find some of the ideas and concepts in this book in a John Maxwell book. Like, these are some very unconventional ways to improving communication skills. But I just wrote, well, like I said, it's 20 pages. So it's a short ebook, but it, so that's to the extent that's the most I've written as far as books are concerned. And of course, little blog posts here and there, but
in a moment here, I'm going to need to wrap this up. But I tell you, I would love it if you would be willing to read a couple of chapters of the book I'm working on now and give me your opinion of them as a fellow writer.
Okay.
Who knows? Maybe maybe it might help to restart or finish the old one.
Yeah.
I'm talking with Charles Rivers, Chuck, and he is the host of Inner Success Television and Inner Success Radio. Him and his friend and partner, Dimitri Billionaire Brown, who I had the pleasure of being on their show a while back and had a great time with them. And if you want to get some additional inspiration and motivation, on some of the same topics we talk about here, then definitely go over to InnerSuccessRadio.com and sign up for his podcast. And I'm sure they can find you on iTunes and Stitcher and places like that too.
Yes, iTunes. We're also on iHeart, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, and we have a Facebook fan page, Inner Success Radio, where we're highly active over there as well. So they can drop comments and questions over there as well.
All righty. Well, I have really enjoyed having you on the show, and thanks for sharing, especially that last story. A lot of people find ways not to share stuff that's that close to them as you did. So thank you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, man. I'm really looking forward to hearing it, the end product.
All right. Well, we will be talking soon, I'm sure. You have a great day, my friend. We want to thank those of you who donated to our Patreon page, which is a very simple, easy way to donate to help support the production costs of this show and the other shows on the Creative Magic Network. Just go to frederickby.com and click on the Patreon link, and you can donate anything from $1 on up per month. And there's some great rewards over there, including a free one-on-one with me, the blind blogger. I believe that's one of the rewards.
Yes, it is.
All right, cool. I just was checking. And then, of course, we do have that tab on there if you want to be a host or if you want to be a guest. And there's lots of great books and other products available over in the Creative Magic store at frederickby, spelled BYE.com. So, hey, Frederick, what do you feel like you learned today from Chuck?
Oh man, I think the thing that really sticks out in my mind is the story. What am I scared to share? What am I scared to share to the world? I think I can write a better story for myself. I think that's been the biggest thing. I feel I hold back a little bit, especially in my writing. Maybe not in my speaking, but in my writing and my bio and stuff like that. I don't know. I just feel that I do hold back a little bit, but yeah, I think that's what sticks out in my mind. What sticks out in your mind?
I think it's interesting how the timing worked out. We're pretty much just with enough time left for him to share a story. He shared the story that would, to me, be the highlight of the episode. About how just one, bad comment around the dinner table kept him from writing for, 6-7 years now. And it's an important thing to remember that when your friends and family tell you that they're writing a book or recording an album or writing a screenplay or whatever, remember your first reaction, that immediate gut reaction to what they're doing, could stall them or could even turn them off completely to doing something that they love to do and they have passion for doing. That's one of the things that really jumped out at me, and I appreciate him sharing something that personal to him. And hopefully after being on the show, maybe he'll pick it back up again or start a new story.
Yeah.
As far as what you said about, maybe you hold some stuff back when you write. I think I have the exact opposite problem. I think that there are times when I would be better served to keep some stuff back behind the fence. I think that there are times when maybe I share just a little too much. And unfortunately, I don't exactly know how I would change that, because at 50, going to be 51 in a couple of months, just like with my writing style, when I tell people, I don't think that I could change my style to a more simplified form of writing, where I write for a less intelligent or less evolved or less advanced reading level. I don't think I could change that at this point either, and I'm not sure I'd want to if I could. So, this is just who I am and the way I'm built. I have a hard time not sharing stuff, and it seems like I share even more online and in email than I do in person. And even in person, I have sometimes been told that maybe I should have just not said something.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But no, I really liked the interview. It was a really great interview.
I think it proves that just because something is difficult and takes a little while for it to come together doesn't mean that the world's trying to tell you it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to check out this conference, and with Les Brown, that's pretty cool. Very motivational. That's very motivational. What his stuff. So, I think people will like it.
I think they will too, and I'm going to have to check out this Esther that he mentioned.
You don't know Esther Hicks?
Interview. Esther Hicks.
You don't know them? Are you kidding me?
No. Look, I've been living in a cave. I got here on a turnip truck. Just pick a phrase. No, I don't know who Esther Hicks is.
Oh, but, my gosh.
Here's the funny thing is I may know who she is, but not know who she is because I'm horrible at names of famous people. Here's a perfect example. While I was in New York, I did a 15-minute interview with WMAPradio.com, which is a new online radio station in New York. They connected with me on LinkedIn and said, well, why don't we do it? And I think we did it like Thursday night or Saturday night. It was on the spur of the moment. I find out that Ryan Badolf posts on his thing. He said, hey, I just found out I'm going to be doing an interview on this radio network, and the host is Casey so-and-so. I don't remember the guy's last name, which shows you how bad I am. He said, this guy used to be one of Howard Stern's regular cast members, and now he started his own network. And I'm like, okay.
Really?
I just did 15 minutes with somebody who used to be on Howard Stern's posse, and I knew it at the time. So that's how bad I stoop at no. If I come in their circle and I'm on visit their blog or podcast, I get to their comments or sending emails or whatever. But I will admit, there are a lot of people I should know who I don't, and I'm sorry. And I know that it's to my detriment that I don't know some of these people. So it won't hurt my feelings if you ask me, hey, Max, do you know somebody? And then go, well, I can't believe you don't know who they are. As long as once I find out who they are, I can head over to their website.
Yeah, they're really big in the law of attraction teachings, and they're really big names. I think they're one of the bigger names. You have Louis Hay, in my opinion, is also very big. I think they're part of Hay House, if I'm not mistaken. I think they are, but they're really like, one of the biggest. And there was big controversy when they were not in The Secret, the DVD The Secret. And there was big controversy and, why they weren't in it, because they're kind of the, specialists in the law of attraction. But, and they've been doing it because she had a husband before, but her husband died and now she's by herself, Hester Hicks, and they've been doing it for a long, long time. But they're good. You'll like it. If you like the law of attraction teachings, you'll like it. You'll like them.
Well, then I definitely will enjoy it. I was disappointed to find out something yesterday that must have just recently changed. You know that now, if you want to pitch Hay House, you have to have an agent.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me. Most big publishing
No, it doesn't surprise
houses.
me. It doesn't surprise me. It just disappointed me a little.
Oh, really? Why you didn't have to do that before?
It's not a surprise. Well, let's see. 2 years ago, the last time I contacted them, you didn't.
Really?
But that's been 2 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But you're right. Most any major publishing house or radio network, you have to have an agent or a publicist if you want to pitch them. That's just part of the game anymore, which is why I've been asking this question and nobody can give me a good answer. And I've been asking, well, is there any legal reason why I couldn't become an agent and just create an agency out of thin air and represent myself from this. And so far, the general response has been, well, you can't do that in New York or California, but you might get away with it in Texas.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we are kind of a lawless sort of state. So, that is just the way it is. And I plan to continue self-publishing unless somebody discovers me and writes me one of them big ass checks. But other than that,
All right, last words before we go.
Yeah, I just want to thank Fred for continuing to help me with the show and for understanding when I wasn't able to be here last week. I also want to thank Chuck for coming on the show and for being patient with us as we were patient with him as we've finally got it straight where we could have him on the show. I just want to thank all for continuing to support and encourage me and be part of my journey and part of my story. And it's out at .com. You can go over and check me out at theblindblogger.net. So thanks again, Fred. It was a great show, I think, too, and I look forward to next week.
Awesome. And you did all the plugs for me, so I don't have to do them. So that's pretty cool. And stay safe. And don't forget, live with purpose, passion, fire, and love. Bye-bye. You've been listening to What's Your Excuse with Max Ivey, known around the world as the Blind Blogger. For more information, you can go to theblindblogger.net or frederickby.com. That's Frederick with a C, by like bye-bye.com.